What's up, old school homies? Let's talk about synthesized tones versus natural instruments that have to be played physically in order to make a sound out of them. This is one of those arguments that you're going to run into, and don't fall into it. Anybody who plays an instrument, that's amazing. A lot of people can't. Most people can't play an instrument at all. And when people find an instrument and they stick to it, it's because they like it. So you don't want to take things away from people and really compare your instrument and say mine's better. Not really, okay? The synthesizer, is it cheating? Almost. There's a lot you could do with it. But you're going to run into a few problems. Mainly that it's expensive to buy a synthesizer, which you can get around. I found 80s toy keyboards that were synthesizers. My drum machine's a synthesizer. My Korg Wave Station was $350 used. I think new it was about $1,300. So even many years later, it's still not getting any cheaper, is it? Barely. And that's kind of like the yuppie thing that you run into is, well, you can collect more synthesizers. Okay, as if one expensive synthesizer wasn't enough. What if you had a whole collection of synthesizers? And this is kind of where it goes. As you like synthesizers, you like more synthesizers. There's no limit to how many different ways you can make tones. So when companies come out with new pieces of hardware, we just get more excited that there's new areas to explore. Now, exploring a synthesizer or multiple synthesizers or settings within a synthesizer is really the beauty, and how you're going to get your tone, but also how you play. It's not an instrument that just plays itself, okay? It has the keys just like the piano, and I admit the piano is a little bit harder to play. Piano sounds better if you play with two hands. Synthesizer doesn't always. It could do anything. There's piano settings on the synthesizers that I have, and they could be played exactly like a piano. Even if it's a synthesized tone, you could get it to be very close. Or you can make an organ sound, or you can make string sounds, brass sounds, drum sounds. Anything could come out of a synthesizer. So when it comes down to getting the tones that you want out of a synthesizer, it takes practice to learn how to get the tones. Okay, just like when you're playing an instrument and you want it to sound different, that takes time. Synthesizer has a few key advantages, and the fact that you could do more than one thing at the same time with a lot of synthesizers. Now that could be adding more and more layers that are in the same key signature at different timbres, maybe at different timings, out of phase. You could do all kinds of different effects quite easily on a synthesizer, as where you have to use your dynamics, hitting things harder and softer, moving faster and slower, to make a natural instrument sound more lush, more just grabbing a hold of the audience. You know, that takes intuition of the player to know when they're affecting the listener and how to affect them through timing and how hard or soft that you hit your instrument. Now the real magic here is that you could do that on a synthesizer too. Um, a synthesizer has aftertouch even. So even after you let go of a key, how fast you let go of a key could affect how far it rings after you let go of it. Not all synthesizers have it, but some do have aftertouch, and that adds a layer of dynamics that you'll become accustomed to if you find it. Yeah, you'll like it. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's not always necessary, but it's dynamic, and synthesizers can be played very dynamically. It's not like they can't. It's mainly the fact that frequencies are thicker on a synthesizer. Thicker in any kind of way. You could add layers and layers onto a frequency modulation synthesizer like the Korg Wave Station here. Or you could add thickness to your tone with an analog synthesizer, because it's basically a more crude piece of electricity that you could hear. You could actually hear the electricity, which is fuzzy, you know, adds more of a thickness to the tone. So that actually affects people. I mean, analog synthesizers like that aren't as versatile. I mean, they kind of are, but it gets difficult. You're gonna run into your issues of having too much frequency in your sound spectrum, where you're gonna drown out other instruments, and you have to kind of back off. Maybe I made a whole album on a synthesizer with my left hand. It's like, I didn't need to use the other hand at all, and I'm right-handed. You know, it's like, it's all right there. But a lot of synthesizers are monophonic, meaning only one note can be played at a time. A lot of them. I mean, polyphonic synthesizers start to get more expensive and more complicated. So if you only need it for monophonic purposes, you could actually find some good monophonic stuff for less money on the used market usually. But yeah, don't hate on the synthesizer guy, because he's basically he or she is gonna have to program or dial in settings or learn their instrument. Now that I know the Wave Station, and I know a lot of the different patches that are available, and how long the decays are and how short some of the other decays are, I could base what I want to use on what's available to the instrument. This one only has 49 patches. If you had 1,200 patches, there's nothing wrong with that. It just takes longer to find them all. But I got better at using the 49 that are available on my keyboard, because, you know, there's nothing wrong with using these 49 right now and using others later. The Wave Station actually had about 1,200 patches or more to it, so eventually I'll get to them when I buy the expansion thing for the computer to hook up to it. So not only have you found a great instrument that has dynamics, but there's also a bit more engineering into the actual instrument itself. Now, this, I don't want to get in a fight here either, because sometimes you'll pick up a guitar and it'll have like some golden sound, some beautiful, lush, well-rounded tone. And you pick up another guitar and it'll just sound like a guitar, you know, and nothing right or wrong with it. But once in a while you'll get a guitar that has the right acoustics to it that'll just kind of speak to you a little bit more. And people that buy more and more expensive instruments that aren't synthesizers, nothing wrong with that. I'm saying it's there. You know, the tone is there. Even if you're not hooking up to a whole bunch of phaser, chorus, delay pedals, stuff like that, the natural tones of acoustic instruments do have differences in their ranges. Even two of the same make of guitar, maybe one sounds good, one sounds kind of bland. Could be in the guitar's pickup windings, could be into the wood, the construction. One has a little bit more jangle in the bridge than another. Every single part of a guitar has parts that make up the whole. And I got caught up in that for a long time, trying to find the perfect guitar. I found several, and I found a lot that just sounded the same. You know what I mean? So the range of different tones that you can naturally get out of an instrument that's not a synthesizer, it helps to layer more instruments, like an orchestra. An orchestra has similarities to a synthesizer. If you have a violin, and then the next step up you got the viola, and then the next step up you got maybe a cello, next step up you got a double bass, the stand-up bass. If all of those people are playing at the same exact time, the same exact note, which they do, it sounds good, and it sounds thick, and it sounds more like a synthesizer. You could get a whole orchestral setting on your synthesizer and play the whole orchestra with one hand. And you feel more like you're conducting a whole entire orchestra. It's a powerful feeling, you know what I mean? So, just kind of bringing it up to you guys, some of the different things that I found along the way about the synthesizer that I like. Its versatility, the fact that I could play any instrument with it, I can play dynamically with it. It's really just the price that kind of bothers me a lot of times.